when it comes to nutrition, there are some concerns that I have. So overall, with all the experts that I listened to and with everything that I heard also from testimonies, what I have realized is that veganism or vegan diet, where you consume things that have no animals were not harmed in it. It does work for some people. I've seen some people, they claim, I have to take their word for it, that they were vegan for 15 years and they're still doing fine. And some of them are even doing better. Um, and then there are others who, of course, had the exact opposite thing. And then, people will say, well, then how was your diet? Were you doing it correctly? Were you not doing it correctly? I eliminated the ones who were not taking supplements because there are some who's just straight up said, I didn't want to take the supplements, so they didn't do it. And then obviously, I mean, even vegans say you should take the supplements, so it's not veganism's fault for that. So I went only for the ones who did everything right, according to vegans themselves. And those ones, they also had some concerns. And in the end, I found from the experts that it's because people's bodies are just not the same. Some people will not react to vegan diets the same way that others do. And one example is beta carotene. I don't know if you've heard of that. Sorry, I heard something there.
Yeah, beta
Beta
carotene. Yep.
carotene.
It's the plant
Yeah.
form. You can get vitamin A from it. Beta carotene gets
Exactly.
converted to vitamin A. Yep.
There we go. So some humans can
Have a poor conversion. Yeah.
convert that. Yeah, yeah. Actually, in general, the conversion rate is a bit low with humans, but unless you take other supplements and stuff, I'm sure it will be fine. However, some humans cannot. They cannot actually do that at all. And some of them also, but then the alternative to that is human animal derived products that can give you retinol directly. So that's why they prefer to take that for the quality of life. So I'm just concerned if you have now. I explained all of that just to put a scenario to you when you with such people who they do take their supplements, they do eat a vegan diet, they have planned it very correctly, but they are starting to feel adverse effects after a while. Because there was one case, for example, where the man did do that, and for a while it was fine. He actually thrived from that. But as he got older and his age started to weigh on him, certain things just couldn't hold out anymore, especially when it came to him getting diseases, for example. The amount of the vegan diet will just not provide what he needs for himself. Would you say that such a person should kind of stick to die from that, or yeah?
So what I would say
Yeah, go
here
ahead.
is, oh, sorry, did I interrupt something?
Mm.
Okay. What I would say here is that there aren't really other cases, I think, where we would accept infringing on somebody's like entire life for like quality of life if we're like really conscious about it. Like an example that I've kind of drawn for myself in the past is, we've been seeing like a loneliness epidemic amongst like the male population in a lot of places. And, it can be said that's because, women have been like, freed from the expectation of being sort of subjugated to these relationships where they are, they're serving. And there are men who, commit suicide over this, and they have terrible quality of life and they're, socially miserable. But we don't perpetuate the idea that women ought to, be subservient, for the well-being or the quality of life of men. So I think that the same thing is can be relatively comparable to veganism, which is that I always say that I would be vegan even if it was bad for me, because it's just not my place to say that, oh, well, I should feel better, so therefore you should die, or like live a life of being subjugated for my benefit. So I do think that sometimes it's not your right to just feel better, and somebody has to suffer for that.
And
Right.
I definitely agree with everything Tofu Dog's saying. When it comes to nutrition, you mentioned that some people's bodies react differently to veganism and some than others. So when we look at nutrition, I think we have to dismantle this idea of vegan diet, meat diet, and we have to look at the components that make up these diets, right? We're talking about macronutrients and micronutrients. At the end of the day, people might have intolerances to certain foods, or maybe certain foods sit better sit better than others with certain individuals. But what matters for nutritional adequacy to not be malnourished is getting all of your micronutrients and macronutrients, right? You got to eat enough calories, got to get enough protein, carbs, and fats, have to get enough vitamin A, B12, whatever it is. As long as you can get that, it doesn't matter what you're eating. You're not going to be malnourished. You're not going to be deficient. Now, some people, like when we look at on a vegan diet, for example, when I eat too many mangoes, hurts my stomach, have digestion issues, because of the fructose. Some people might be able to consume more mangoes than others. Some people might be able to consume this food, that food, whereas I can't. None of that really matters. That's going to come down to individual differences. But I actually haven't seen any example of somebody not being able to thrive on a properly planned vegan diet or plant-based diet based on their individuals. And you mentioned vitamin A, how we can't, some people can't, what's it called? Can't convert beta carotene. They actually have preformed retinol. They have vegan preformed retinol supplements. So I actually just looked because I knew they had one. So they have vitamin A in the form of retinol preformed for it's vegan capsules. So even people who can't convert certain things, whether it's omega 3s, whether it's vitamin A, they have already converted or preformed vegan versions of them. Omega 3 is a great one. You can get it from algae. So like in my multivitamin, they have omega 3 that's derived from algae, which is where the fish get it from. And then in this case with the vitamin A, they have the vegan retinol, vegan preformed vitamin A. So all of these things are workable. And when we look at anecdotes are a horrible, that's like the lowest possible form of scientific evidence when we're talking about the hierarchy. We should be looking at epidemiology, blind controlled trials, actual peer-reviewed research. And all of the vast majority of the peer-reviewed research supports not needing any animal products for health, assuming you get those nutrients. So that's what it boils down to. If somebody might go to the gym and say, oh, I feel so much worse since going to the gym. But we know that going to the gym has health benefits, right? We know that doing these things have health benefits. So in terms of what you feel on an individual basis.
Unless you have I'm sorry, I was just going to say, unless you have a precondition which would make going to the gym not good for you. And so you would
right. Well, I mean, but then,
I think here we're talking, go ahead.
When I say gym, I mean physical activity. So even if you have a condition where certain physical activity is harmful for you or can hurt you, some physical activity, no matter what form, is beneficial. And we know this because of the science, right?
And that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Yeah, same thing with plant-based diets. Some foods you may not be able to eat. If you have an allergy, let's say you have a soy allergy, you can't eat soy. Okay, there's no reason why you still can't do well on a plant-based diet. You can work around your allergies. You can work around your food intolerances.
When you say work around them, I think you mean like by eating other alternatives, by eating alternatives. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get that. And sorry, and Lucy, you wanted to, do you want to say something?
They said everything.
All right. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to add one more point, which is something that we've been reiterating a little bit through the past points as well, which is like the vegan versus non-vegan mindset, right? I mean, like veganism and sort of the idea of plant-based diets is still like very new. I mean, there are versions of plant-based diets that have come up throughout history, and there's a lot of evidence that people can be healthy on plant-based diets, but culturally, I think that it is very, very new in a lot of ways, and I don't think it's fair to compare veganism in the state that it is now to the highly developed food system that we have, that most people abide by today. Because again, I think that as more people shift towards an animal-friendly lifestyle and we do start to value the lives of other animals, there are advancements that will necessarily be made that will fix these problems. So just because we're saying right now, oh, we have this problem, that doesn't mean that veganism isn't viable in the long run. And focusing on these niche cases, like with the individuals who cannot convert these nutrients or these vitamins, it may deter people again because they think, oh well, some people can't be healthy on veganism, well then maybe I can't be. And then I also think that there's a lot of potential, like with the technology I was mentioning, for like lab grown. Like if we really do have these individual cases where like for some reason it cannot be had through plant sources, I know that there is a lot of contention about lab grown because there are animals who, you know, still do need to be used. So I'm not necessarily advocating for that, and definitely not in mass. But I think that there may be viable options where, you know, we can have harm-free lab grown animal products for incredibly niche cases like that, I'm not ruling that out as a possibility. And I don't think other
Yeah.
people.
Oh, sorry. I just want to add something real quick because I think a lot of people are they see like needing supplements, for example B12, as like a vegan issue that makes veganism not viable or something. But then they forget that animals are often supplemented in B12 in the first place because B12 is made by bacteria found in the soil. And there's also been studies showing that if you don't treat the water, there's B12 in the water as well. Anyways, and I think they found like one plant with B12 or something in it. But anyways, apart from that, like this idea of like if something is not natural, it's wrong. It is completely, of course, bonkers because when you think about it, we all have computers. We all take medicine if we need to, things like this. And we don't say, oh, that's a problem when it's about medicine, you know, that it's not natural. But when it comes to supplements, if we want to keep a certain lifestyle or habit when it comes to food, for example, we'll use that as a problem somehow, even if we do take, for example, vitamin D as a non-vegan because we don't go outside enough or something, you know. So I think that's just something to address real quick because that
Well, I'm glad you addressed it for those who, yeah, definitely glad you addressed it because there are people who say that. I don't, I would never say that. I mean, most of even the things, the food that people think are natural, they're not. The chicken, for example, that we eat, it's pumped full of chemicals to keep them a certain quality for people and everything. I wouldn't call that natural. But thank you for your responses. The main thing here is now then goes back to the practicality of it because you do find nutrients that you need to survive and even thrive from a vegan diet. That is true. The only problem is the quantity that you can get from a vegan diet compared to what you would get from a non-vegan diet. That's why when it comes to health-wise, a vegan diet has been said by many people that it is not necessarily for everyone. That's why I'm talking about. That's why I'm not talking about throwing. I understand what you're saying about that some people think that that's a point and then nobody should try it. I disagree with that. With people who say that, I don't think that just because there's one point, you should. It destroys the entire idea, movement or lifestyle. However, for some people, it will not be possible, especially people who are anemic. Iron, for example, you can find some
I am
iron
too.
in
I'm fine.
us. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some people, but then that's why I brought it anecdotes, right? It's not that I'm saying anecdotes as scientific evidence, because actually a lot of the experts who are talking about this needed anecdotes and examples from people who they can see the examples of the effects of veganism on them. Some people with anemia can survive. Some people with anemia do not. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. And also it depends on the quantity that you would have to have. The amount of fruits or plant-based or vegan food that you would need to eat to keep a certain level of those nutrients for some people would have to be like a lot to keep that. And it's just easier to find it from, I suppose,
What about
meat.
supplements? It's even easier.
Supplements, the problem with supplements is that they don't give you the calories that you need. You would need to have the calories by eating other stuff.
Correct.
So it's yeah. But then now if you're the calories is one thing, but also it's about like I said, the conversion of certain nutrients. Again, with those people, the supplements can give you one thing. The conversion of the other stuff that you eat to give you the other nutrients is
Well,
another thing.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
because if we're talking about, so now, because I think the argument of, well, you can't be healthy on a vegan, plant-based diet, I think that's just not going to, scientifically, that's not going to hold. But now if you were trying to argue about the practicality of something, I mean, whether you're eating an omnivorous diet or a fully plant-based diet, the easiest foods, the most readily available foods, are complete garbage, right? And for this, we're just talking about nutrition. We could link it to animal rights as well, but I'm just talking about nutrition. When we're looking at the diet that's easiest to get, McDonald's, candy, soda, the cheapest foods available, right? In terms of besides, funny enough, besides whole plant foods, the cheapest foods available are heavily processed, quick, and gonna destroy your health. If we look at the majority of omnivorous people, the majority of people are people who eat animal products, but if we look at the majority of the majority, they all feel like garbage, right? If we want to talk to anecdotes, all of those people, we have a obesity epidemic. They have type 2 diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, gout. All of these conditions are growing in number because of what's practical for most of these people, which is, or what they think is practical, which is eating fast food, drinking soda, what they're being sold, right? So when we're talking about problems in nutrition or access to good food, it's going to be a problem that affects not just plant-based diets. It also affects omnivorous diets as well, or animal products. If you want to be healthy eating animal products, you still have to take the time, research nutrition, purchase quality food. It's not like, vegan diets, if you don't plan them, you're going to be unhealthy. But if you don't plan your omnivorous diet, you're going to be totally fine. No, the majority of people, the reason why we have these supplements aren't for vegans. The reason why these supplements were created are actually for people who are deficient on their omnivorous diet, right? Because they don't know enough about nutrition, or they eat whatever they think is available to them. So I think a lot of the problems we have with nutrition isn't a vegan problem. It's a industry issue. I think it's an educational issue. But then again, linking it to animal rights, I think if you can be healthy on both, and both need to take, I would say, equally as much, I would grant that, because I wasn't vegan at one point, and I still had to do a lot of research into how to eat healthy and take the time to buy products, take the time to do these things. So I would say that nowadays especially, they both take equally as much effort. I would say that the best diet to have morally would be the vegan diet or the plant-based diet. On top of
morally, yeah.
Correct. And then even nutrition, like with nutritional science, there's plenty of research, which I have linked on my website. I could also send to you personally. There's plenty of research showing health benefits. Forget about, it's not like vegan diets are going to equal omnivorous diet health. There's a lot of research showing health benefits of avoiding the consumption of animal products, whether it's lower risk of heart disease.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. For some people, again, it's some people. That's why I started by saying that.
What do you mean? No. What do you mean for some? What do you mean for some people?
For example, yes, if you reduce the consumption of meat, everybody should. If you overdose anything, it's going to be bad. If you eat too much meat, it's going to be bad. If you drink too many soft drinks, it's going to be bad. And that there are some things that if you have an excess, it's going to be bad. However, if there are some people eat meat and they eat it at a moderate level, the vegan diet would not. It may reduce their risk, but it's not going to make them any healthier.
Oh, no. So yeah. So sorry, just to clarify my position, not my position, but nutritional science. You can be healthy on a diet with minimal animal products, right? That's why the number one recommended diet, because we're not Mediterranean. Yes. So that's a little bit of fish, maybe a little bit of chicken, maybe a little bit of dairy. But the doses we're talking about is very, very minimal, number one. But number two, I think the Mediterranean diet is most recommended because we're in a non-vegan world. But if you actually look, there's no benefit, right? I would say most of the benefit from these low meat diets isn't from that little bit of meat that's left in the diet. It's actually from excluding the heavily processed foods, as well as fatty cuts or the majority of processed animal products and fatty meats. It's not the meat that contributes to heart disease. It's going to be saturated fat and cholesterol. And whole food plant-based diets, unless you're eating a coconut a day, they're going to be lower in saturated fat, completely devoid of cholesterol. Whereas even if you eat what most would consider a small amount of meat, there is research showing that you are still going to raise your cholesterol levels, right? Even people
Well,
who
of course,
do.
but yeah, that it's not to the point where you would have problems from that. Eating a
Oh,
little bit of meat will
absolutely. Oh
not
no,
give
you
you.
absolutely. Yeah. So if you have an elevated
It just gives you
LDL,
a higher risk. If you eat any meat, it will give you a certain risk, but it's not that it's going to be unhealthy if you eat it at a certain amount.
well, so heart disease is our number one killer, right? And
Yep.
yes, it's a lot of processed food, a lot of fatty cuts of meat. But if you have it's not about the meat; it's about what it means for your cholesterol levels. If you have an
Yes.
elevated LDL beyond the healthy range, doesn't matter if you eat a minimal amount of meat. If you have a unhealthy level of LDL cholesterol, it's going to not only it's going to increase your risk of heart disease or heart attacks, but it does contribute to atherosclerosis, which is the clogging of the arteries. So or plaque clogging your arteries. So again, I think we need to stop focusing when it comes to nutrition on meat versus not meat, this and that, and actually break it down into the components of the diet. Because once you break it down to the components of the diet and the actual research, you'll see that with appropriately planned supplementation and a healthy whole food plant-based diet, you will be as healthy, if not most likely much healthier than your average omnivore.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I would say
So
nutrition.
yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Please finish your.
I was going to say, I would say that arguing against, I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm arguing
Yeah.
against plant-based diets or veganism from the aspect of nutrition is just going to be a losing game. You know, if you want to
Yeah.
try and poke hypocrisy holes like we did earlier, that I think
No,
has
not
more
that.
nuance. But when it comes to nutrition, there really is no leg to stand on. And anyone who says otherwise either hasn't read the research or doesn't really care about the research and focuses more on anecdotes.
So like I said, I even mentioned that a plant-based or a vegan diet does have all the nutrients you need to be able to live healthily. I'm talking about the variations between people. You would know, for example, that there are some people who are born with certain deficiencies in their metabolism and everything. There are some people who are born with hormonal imbalances and stuff like that, and those things happen. Many people, or rather, we have seen through evidence, if you want that, that eliminating certain foods or certain nutrients from your diet that you can get in a sufficient quantities by just eating it without, even though they take the supplementation, we have seen that for some people, I'm not talking about everybody, because when we say, okay, you can do that, even when you're talking about the vegan stuff, it's not for everybody. That's what I'm trying to point out. There will be some people who will not be able to thrive or even survive without having certain nutrients. Now, how they get those nutrients, if they get it from the plants, they will have to. Yeah, go ahead.
Correct. So I just want to make that distinction. There are
Mhm.
certain conditions where it may be harder to get certain nutrients, but
Yes.
there is no known condition, and if there is, please show me. But as far as I know,
Mhm.
there is no known condition where you have to eat animal flesh, you have to drink animal milk, you have to
No, you don't
eat
have to eat
animals.
animal flesh.
Right.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, it's just
definitely.
that so those foods just contain enough at us in one meal to cover a whole lot. Like I think I can't remember the numbers now, but one meal of steak, for example, covers a whole lot more
I'm
of
sorry. I don't mean to.
well,
Can you give me just 1 second? I'm sorry. I think somebody's at my door. Sorry. Hold on.
okay, sorry about that, people. So what I'm essentially trying to say here is that for a person for some people they will get those nutrients. It's just the quantity of it that they will get from plants or a vegan based diet. They complain. Well, dietitians would say that not just easier, because it is easier, but also the conversion. And for some people, so my because I'm not even arguing of that you can't get the nutrients, because you can. Even non-vegans would say that you can get the nutrients from a vegan diet. My thing is for those people. So my concern is for those people who either cannot convert the nutrients correctly or properly, but just by their genetics. Those people who cannot who have such a deficiency in some nutrients that they would need a higher dosage of it in a meal. Because remember, you also have to consider the day-to-day lives. If a certain if eating comes into conflict with the your patterns of living to the point where now it just disrupts a lot of other things. It can also be very detrimental to one's quality and standard of life. So my thing is for those people who would have these deficiencies and everything, and a vegan diet is just not sustainable, or at least they will not live very long with a vegan diet. I'm just wondering what you and Lucy's and Sophie's opinion is on that for those people who cannot live by a vegan diet.
I'm going to let you guys talk. I know I did a lot of talking. Just one key thing to address. Because you mentioned that they can't live or they can't do a vegan diet. That's just not true, right? So like when they say that let's say we look at some of the major cases, some of the big cases of issues, right? So vitamin A, you talked about it, which honestly I've rarely seen, but it does happen. B12 is a big one. So some people have problems absorbing B12 in their gut. But that's not, even if you eat animal products, you won't absorb B12. So for them, they need a supplement or they need a shot, right? So for that case, whether you're vegan, not vegan, doesn't matter. In the case of iron, again, you can eat plant fortified iron foods. I mean, I know that a lot of cereals, a lot of milks, a lot of oatmeals, they're all fortified with plenty of iron. Or you could just get a multivitamin that has iron included. I know especially for women because of menstruation and stuff, I know like my fiance, she has a multivitamin. It has tons of iron in it. It's women, the 18 and up vitamin. So all of the things practically, again, unless there's, I'm not familiar with anything that couldn't be supplemented and or substituted for. But if there is, I would love to see it. But all of the things that I think, or most people would be concerned about, like vitamin B12, calcium, vitamin A, stuff, vitamin D, all those things, not only can you usually get right from plants, and if not, fortified plant foods like plant-based milks, nutritional yeast is a powerhouse for your B vitamins, or if you have even further complications, you might have to get doctors involved where you might have to get a shot every 3 months, or you might have to have some type of intervention that you would need on either diet. So that's what I would say. You definitely can. There's no condition known where you can't be vegan and survive and thrive. Again, it's about the individual vitamins, and we have an intervention for all of these cases.
I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I'll let others speak. Sorry, go ahead.
I have never, like you were saying, I've never seen a case where somebody has like actually had like a specific vitamin deficiency and they've only eaten like this specific amount of animal product that they need. I read one anecdote about somebody who said that they're on a feeding tube and the liquid has like dairy in it. But aside from that, so that's literally the only case where usually this argument is used for people who just want to keep eating animal products. So, and then I also wanted to point out that veganism is relatively new and only about like 1% roughly of the population. So we only have 1% of the total human population putting their energy towards solving some of these problems. So when it comes to these very niche cases where that is the case, and if for some reason we're saying that they feel justified in taking somebody's life, exploiting them, there's no reason to say that they can't like absolutely minimize that to the bare smallest amount of animal products to sort of get by. Like that's just not a reality that we're seeing. So I just don't really buy like the nutrient deficiency thing or like the conversion thing, because most of the time that's like a disingenuous argument that people use in order to just carry on justifying their ways of life. And what I was saying with the 1% of the vegan population is that, if we put like collective human brain power into solving these issues with a vegan-minded society, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So I don't think it's fair to hold veganism to the idea that we just haven't had the opportunity to solve yet, because just the majority of people aren't trying to solve these problems. It's not fair to say that it's an insurmountable sort of challenge for veganism.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say that there are like vegans and people on plant-based diets who have conditions that make it difficult for them to have any type of restriction in a diet. Like, for example, this activist Arvind from India, he has like IBS, and so he has to eat certain types of foods, or just like there's vegans that have allergies to soy, to nuts, to whatever, but they still like make it work on plant-based diet. And it's also when you also remember like that veganism is about the animal victims, it makes it so much easier to really try to focus on the solution instead of trying to find any excuse. Some people might think that it is really an impossibility, but when you really don't want to exploit animals and have them enslaved for you, it makes it easier to be motivated to try to find other ways to live your life and to find like, oh, these people have been succeeded how at a plant-based diet with, for example, IBS. How can I do that as well? But also the thing that is kind of shocking in that thing is also like we only consider the health of humans when it's not the only like creatures or people, let's say non-human people involved. We're not the only ones we have to consider here. We also have to consider that they are victims to this choice, even if it might be, like, for example, more convenient for us to eat like animal foods because there's more calories or something, even if you can have enough calories on a plant-based diet. We're not the only one to consider. That's also something we have to remember, because we tend to only consider ourselves in this because we still see animals as objects, like commodities and resources. So it's just something to keep in mind because we're not used to consider them really at all.
Was something I was going to ask you, all of you, about. Have you all seen the? I want to bring up one that you may be familiar with, no longer vegan video, the one by Cosmic Skeptic or Alex O'Connor. Have you? Okay,
I
has
have.
anybody not seen it?
I don't
I
think
didn't
I've
watch
seen
it.
it, but I've
I've
heard a
seen it.
lot about
Okay.
it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That one
the
broke
only
my
reason
heart.
yeah. Well, for me, I mean, I will get into that, but the only reason I watched it, I was not even interested in any of that, or just because somebody has more subscribers or whatever. The only reason I watched that is because of the impact. Like Lucy said, a lot of people were talking about it. But in there, I wanted to talk about some things that he said because I wanted to get your view on how you would view people who are no longer vegan. So in there, he mentioned of three main reasons that I can kind of lay out. One of them, the first one was the practicality. He made it very clear that a vegan diet has all the nutrients that you need. He repeated that like 3 times in the video. He said that he's not trying to tell other people to not go vegan. He said that this is really just a personal thing. I know a lot of no longer vegan videos always say, this is my personal choice. I'm not trying to whatever, but
It's my
yeah, he also said
journey.
that.
Those
Yeah,
are my
yeah.
Yeah,
favorite.
yeah. So he said that, but his reasons for no longer doing it, being able to keep it up, is the practicality of it. He also suffers from IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and in many situations that he finds himself in, it's not sustainable. He's not able to do it. So it's a practical thing. I know. I can see your look on Lucy's face. He also says that mental health, and I wanted to mention mental health not just for him but for others as well. You see, I know that it sounds like something like just suck it up and stuff, but I think that it does have quite a big impact on things. If you're surrounded by a lot of people who do not who cannot eat who are not vegan, and you're trying to be vegan, you're surrounded by all these things and you're making the effort, it does have an effect on people's mental health. So I just want to make
Oh
that
yeah.
clear, that it's not just a okay, so at least we're on the same page about
No,
that.
no. Look, I'm
Then
sure. I
mm,
don't want to speak for everyone, but I myself, I'm sure
mm,
we all are.
mm,
We not only believe that mental health. I know a lot of people are deniers of the
mm,
impact of mental health, but I'm in full
yeah,
support of mental health. People speaking out about mental health
yeah,
awareness. Like I definitely think I think that is a huge thing. Yeah. So that's.
mm,
But I'll address the thing about that later.
yeah,
Continue,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah. And then the third point, that those were the two main things that the practical, he just said that it's easier. He literally used the word easier, that to get the nutrition that he needed for himself in his personal situation from non-vegan products. So I wanted to kind of get your sense of this. This is just one example, but there are other examples of people who say that in their particular situation is not easy. Now, we've spoken about the nutrition part. But for people, when it comes to other things other than nutrition, I wanted to kind of get an idea. Mental health, practicality, living a life where the quality of their life is much more difficult because of veganism. I wanted to kind of get your ideas on that. Lucy, I know that you want to like explode, so you
Yeah,
could
Lucy,
probably
if you
go
want to go
first.
first, go for it.
Yeah.
Well, it's just what I said earlier. Like, there's this activist, Arvind, who's like
Uh-huh.
huge. Actually, he's doing amazing work, and he has IBS, and he made a whole video on this. Like, I have IBS too. This, I am doing it. I figured out how to be vegan. You can too. I can help you. Just shoot me a message, etc., etc. So it sounds really like a convenience problem instead of an
Mhm.
impossibility problem. But like,
I would agree with that. Sorry, just to put in, I don't forget your train of thought. Just to point there, do you think that he could do it and he's able to do it? Especially, I think that what you said earlier also counts, the mindset that you have. If you know that you're doing it because you don't want to, you consider other animals not an option, then that's an one thing. Because I'm sure that if other people, like Alex, did not like keep drew the line on that, considered it cannibalism, for example, on that level, to eat other non-human animals, then maybe it would have been different. But do you think that amounts of certain amounts of suffering from that, just because I can do it and I have the same problem? Do you think that maybe it's a bit, I don't want to say insensitive, but do you think we should consider the people who are in that situation but just can't do it?
of course, I think we should, of course, consider them and help them, of course, as much as
Mhm.
possible. It's like, that's why, like, Arvin in his video, because he suffers from it, it was like, please reach out to me. I would love to help you, figure this out. Of course, like, these people deserve help, and it is important what they're going through, and it matters as well. But when you really look at both situations, the person suffering from IBS and the little animal in the slaughterhouse, or the animal that's being raped and exploited and mutilated, like, really, which one is the hardest? Like, it's just, at some point we have to look at it objectively and zoom out. You got to consider both, and when you consider both, it's very, very clear that the animals have it much harder. And of course, like, I hope the best for someone who has IBS, and I just hope that they get the help they need from other vegans and other whatever nutritionists, to help them figure these things out. But it doesn't matter that it doesn't mean that because it is hard for you, like, it is inconvenient or it's not easy, that justifies you using someone else for your benefit without their consent, and especially like exploiting them and using their body, like.
Yeah, and if I could jump in to focus more specifically on the Cosmic Skeptic case, because I do remember when that was a heartbreaking one for me, because his arguments for animal rights were so clear and consistent, and he still is, actually. He still pushes back. He still is a great voice in terms of the argumentation for animal rights. So that one really broke my heart a little bit, but I think the problem with his case is, if we look at it, number one, he never actually disclosed what the issue was. I know he said he had some irritable bowel syndrome, but he never actually said what, more detail as to what was going on. He never disclosed if he actually went to a nutritionist or to a doctor to get help with it. And he has a very large following. He was very well respected amongst the animal rights community, whether it's with other activists like Earthling Ed, Joey Armstrong, Vegan Gains, anybody. If he were to reach out to anybody, they would help him in a heartbeat. So, and also, it sounded like the main thing that his issue was when he's traveling. I think he specifically said, well, when I'm in different countries and I go out, I can't really get food at restaurants with my friends and this and that. The amount of times that I've had to pack my own food, or the amount of times that I've had to go to a convenience store to find something to eat that sits well with me. They also have, if you have IBS, they have digestible, like easily digestible foods like Soylent or Huel, or things that you could do in shakes when you are traveling. So what his video showed me wasn't actually a case of, well, I can't do it. Here is the science why I can't do it. Here is what was going on. I reached out to this nutritionist. I reached out to that person. I tried everything I could. I can't do it. He literally said, well, it was kind of too hard for me, so now I'm back to eating some animal products. Like there was just a lot missing in his explanation as to why he stopped. And ultimately, just like how Peter Singer, I'm sure we're all familiar with Peter Singer. Peter Singer considered himself a flexitarian or a flexible vegan, where he eats vegan all the time, except from when he's traveling and he's in airports and he just doesn't feel like looking at the labels and he just eats what he wants to eat. I would say that it might make you feel, it might improve your quality of life by like not having to take the extra time to find a vegan place or look at a label. But you know, a lot of things could improve your quality of life that also infringe on other people's rights or cause harm. So yeah, I would not accept that as a justification. I think his video was very poorly explained, and I think he was too hasty with it. I think he should have done more, should have reached out and gotten the help that he needed, or at least tried to get the help that he needed first before releasing that.
When it comes to getting the help that he needed, there was actually a message that a DM that he displayed explaining from somebody. He didn't mention who it was, but it was a vegan activist with a blue check mark, I think either on Instagram or Twitter. So it's a pretty big person with a huge following. And that person said the same thing. He said that he should have reached out and stuff. But I don't know if any of us here with personal issues and everything, because he said that his mental issues came from something that was quite personal that was happening in his life. I don't think that reaching out to have to explain that to people is something that a lot of people are willing to do.
Sure. No, and that's
so
reasonable. But my question is, what would eating animal products do to fix your mental health? So if he had something personal going on, let's say there was a death, let's say there was something, you know, whatever it's going on, there's a magnitude of reasons why somebody's mental health would be affected. The idea that eating a piece of salmon or eating a piece of animal flesh would just magically fix that, that's just not true, right? Diet can be related to mental health. But it's no piece of animal flesh or animal product is going to fix your mental health or fix your mental health issue.
Yeah, no. He was actually saying that the symptoms of that are common with other people who try to go vegan and they have adverse reactions like fatigue, extreme lethargy in the morning that he's not even able to do, not in the morning, but not even able to do his activism sometimes. Those are the things that were really bothering him. Eating animal products did help with that. He's actually said that very soon afterwards he was back to feeling great again because he wasn't getting enough from the supplements and stuff like that. So it's not just the mental health part. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So with a case like that, most of the time when you see cases like that, where they say, well, I felt weak, no energy, as soon as I ate animal products, I felt better, are people who are usually very underweight. If you look at Cosmic Skeptic, I mean, I know weights range, but he is a generally very small, very skinny person. If you look at all these raw vegans,
he's actually pretty tall, but yeah.
Well, tall, but you know what I mean, like weight-wise.
Yeah, skinny,
when you look at raw vegans, especially, a lot of raw vegans who are no longer raw vegan, at the end, right before they stopped being vegan, they were incredibly emaciated. They were very, visibly just very underweight, which a lot of the times people get into veganism as like a side effect of like an eating disorder. Because when it comes to different diets, it's a very restrictive diet. I know this because my own fiance, before she even met me, she went into veganism due to eating disorders and trying to restrict her eating. When we're talking about human psychology, it's a very tricky thing, right? How somebody feels, what somebody's experiencing, what makes them feel better here, what makes them feel better there. That's why it's important to go to a doctor to seek medical advice and seek medical intervention and not just go off of how you feel. Because again, if he was feeling low energy, my guess is he needed to eat more. And whether or not he knew that or he had the nutritional background to know that.
He said that he didn't eat enough because he was scared of his IBS symptoms.
Oh yeah, he did.
Right.
Say that, yeah.
So in that case, he probably could have found, because I know like Lifting Vegan Logic, he has Crohn's disease and he's getting enough food to build muscle and go work out. There are solutions to these problems. Whether people seek those solutions, that's on them. I can't say that a Cosmic Skeptic did everything he could have or didn't. I don't know. So that's really on them. But to say that, like, it's not about the individual. It's about, is it possible? Is it doable? And if it's doable, and there are workarounds to it, then you should do it. Especially somebody like Cosmic Skeptic, who has resources, lives in a first world country, is very prominent on the internet. I don't see any reason why he couldn't.
Mm. And Tofu, you have anything to say?
I think that really sums it up. I think that the whole idea of, that there are solutions and whether people seek them out or not, that really sums it up really, really nicely. And it's tough because the mental health aspect can be really challenging. And I think that it does take like a certain amount of willpower to go against what everyone in your life is doing. And I think that that's actually the biggest obstacle for veganism, is that a lot of people are really uncomfortable going against the grain. And that can be a lot of pressure. And it takes, I think, at this point of the stage that veganism is in, like a certain amount of willpower to sort of sustain it in a lot of cases. And I think that if on top of that you have physical issues and you're not managing it, and maybe you're scared to reach out to a doctor because that doctors are not always very educated on nutrition, like I think that can start to feel hopeless. So I think that it is a matter of just publicizing that it is possible, like leading by positive example. And sort of, I think that a lot of the time people will say like, oh, well, veganism is easy. And I think that it's important to walk the line carefully of saying that something is easy while also demonstrating that it is challenging in certain respects, but making sure that doesn't outweigh the fact of how important it is and the fact that it does get easier. Otherwise, I think if people go in thinking, oh, well, it's going to be super easy or it's going to be super hard, that's not like a realistic depiction of what it's going to be like. And I think that just having a really solid reason of why, like Lucy was talking about, it's about the victims, it's about the animals. And if like, I don't see animal products as food, like it isn't food. Like I can look at it and it's like, I mean, we're not talking about a life or death situation. Cosmic Skeptic, I presume, also wasn't. So I think that just being educated and seeking the help and making it more socially acceptable and widespread will combat cases like the Cosmic Skeptic case. And that...
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
sorry. Okay, I just wanted to add that that's why I think we should focus like a part of our activism on building community for vegans. Mm-hmm. Because it's such a big reason I think we have ex-vegans as well. It's like, I think totally on point, like this social thing, like we're like the humanity is a social species, and so it is very hard for us to go against the grain, like you said. And so the fact that we have communities online and we have communities in real life as well is very important, so that people can feel like, well, they might feel a little bit isolated when they're with their friends that are non-vegans because they don't understand this stance and the dystopia that comes with it. Mm-hmm. But at least they will have other people in their life that do understand what it's like, and they can support them, and all that. It's super important for that reason, I think.
Mm-hmm. And one last thing, I was just gonna add one thing because I thought of this. It's also like right now, and Lucy I think touched on this, and maybe Tofu Dog too, where right now there's this idea of eating animal flesh and eating animal secretions is an option to fix your health problems, right? Like we have it as an option. I think like if I think about all the people who do eat animal products and suffer from health conditions, there are people who eat animal products that still suffer from IBS. There are people who eat these who eat the typical meat and plant diet that suffer from a lot of things, health conditions. But still need medical intervention, still need things that help them deal with those conditions, whether it's medication, whether it's dietary related things, whatever, lifestyle changes. So I think in a vegan world, not only is it important to provide solutions, like Tofu Dog was saying, we need to publicize and be open about the problems that can happen with veganism. Hey, if you drop 30 pounds and you're feeling like garbage, eat more, hey, if you have this condition, here's a solution. That's important. But I think in a vegan world, it would be, we would address these issues exactly like they're addressed in a non-vegan world. You're dealing with something. Okay, what can we do diet related? And then what do we need to do medicine related or with a medical intervention? It would be the same exact thing, just without animal flesh and secretions involved, without the exploitation of animals involved. So it's the same type of process. It would be just a vegan world. So I think that's what we need to remember. And again, in terms of what happened with Cosmic Skeptic, like I said, it's hard to know exactly everything he was dealing with. But again, as somebody who does, I think based on his argumentation, he still believes in animal rights. I would say from a personal standpoint, maybe don't say things that you're going through in the moment until you actually kind of iron out the kinks. Now, I understand why he's a popular guy. If somebody saw him eating fish or something, he'd be blasted all over the internet. So I appreciate his transparency. But at the same time, maybe be open, maybe give it a little bit, maybe, like I said, maybe take more effort. Because he was very, he's not just some random dude who stopped eating meat. He was very prominent and very outspoken for animals. So, yeah, I don't know. But
he's also utilitarian, right? So that's
He
also
is. He does
probably
have,
part
but
of it.
yeah.
is he utilitarian?
He
I didn't know
has.
that.
I remember one time when he was debating, discussing with a Christian. He said, I think he said something about that, or its changes. He fluctuates with a few of his ideologies, so he could be, yeah.
Well, because I know that
Um,
there are a lot of vegans. I don't know if I'm included in that, but there are a lot of vegans who, I think they're called threshold deontologists. So what happens is they're rights based, but then if there's a certain threshold that's met, they will cross that. So, like for example, I'm against infringing on the rights of another person. But if I had to infringe on one person's rights to save 3 trillion people from suffering, then a threshold deontologist would say, okay, they have their own threshold for how high that number would have to be to cause rights violations to that one person. So something like that, which I was going to mention for the crop deaths, people use where, like some people like the Nutrivore, they say, well, there are wild deaths that happen on land where crops are grown, right? So if there were no crops grown, there's predation, there's insects eating each other, there's there's a lot of deaths that happen there. So they want to see more research showing that there's more death happening when we grow crops versus the wild deaths that would happen on that land in the first place. Which I think if we're talking,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, not to interrupt at all, but just I have the answer to that because no, we definitely kill more than they kill them each other. When insects kill each other, they usually kill one, and usually for food, not for defense or anything. And then after a few days, sometimes they will eat again and everything. We kill them in 5 minutes. We can kill literally 2 million insects. So we definitely kill more than they.
No, I hear you. It just again when it's over because we plow the field. So again like having empirical evidence, that's really what matters. I know we can speculate, but speculation like we'd have to have like numbers. And I'm not saying maybe you do. I'd love to see it, but I'm saying
Yeah,
that that's an
okay.
argument that a lot of people use where okay, if we are worried about death, not just exploitation. If we're worried about overall death, let's see what actually causes more death. But yeah, that's all I was gonna say about the
Yeah.
Cosmic
No,
Skeptic thing.
yeah, no, they okay, well, I could show you the empirical, but I've been on the fields. I've seen how many insects we kill. It's even if we also know how insects kill each other. They couldn't compare to the type of damage that or the killing that we do. Insects, if people make that argument, I don't know where they would make it, but they would need to be on the fields to see. We literally go with with machines. We boom spray them. You can literally see them fall, and then on the bottom, the birds will eventually come and eat. They have like a buffet of insects that they eat. That's why sometimes birds don't even. But yeah, but I was actually going to say with the cosmic skeptic thing is that oh man, I forgot my train of thought. Somebody say something, and then I'll remember.
2,000 years later.
I just remembered what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that I kind of see your point when it comes to having done a bit more. So if I'm just imagining myself in that position, if I did have to make a decision on like not being, if I was a vegan and I didn't want to be a vegan anymore, I would probably go and see someone. I would kind of research what can I do not to. If I went in there with the mindset that I don't want to kill other animals, I mean, if you consider it wrong, you wouldn't want to do wrong. So you would try to do everything that you can not to. But on the other side is that when you are in that situation, it's a whole other thing. I mean, when you're there, you're in a lot of pain, you're in a lot of deficiency, and you know what can help you, at least for that moment. You would probably do that. Um, Going to a nutritionist, he may do things, but especially again with his situation, maybe he didn't want to talk about that. And again, mental health, it's not something that's very easy to talk about, even with a nutritionist. So I cannot speak too much about his position because I'm not in there, and I am, well, I would say fortunate enough to not have mental issues of any kind right now. So I don't know what he kind of went through. And then the other thing that you mentioned, I just wanted to put a comment on, was that the thing about not speaking about about problems that people are going through. I kind of disagree, because I think that if people kind of kept to themselves the problems that come with veganism, it will cause a bit of harm, because then people will be like, none of these problems, it's just me that's experiencing these problems, and that's a problem, because they think that it's not something that is a reoccurring thing. I think people should speak about the problems they have,
Oh yeah, no, I
or
never
the
said.
adverse
I'm
effects.
sorry. Yeah, I don't know if that's how it came off. I specifically said we need to provide solutions for these problems, and we
Yeah.
need to be outspoken about it. What I was saying about Cosmic Skeptic is
uh,
because his argumentation was so strong, and because he was such a voice for animals. What I'm saying is,
uh.
if you're going to come out and
Oh
pretty
yeah,
much say, hey, all of this fighting, all of these debates, all this argumentation I've been doing, well, guess what? I'm eating animal products now, or I'm eating animal flesh now. You should, I would say, do your due diligence of having a actual like story, right? What he came out with pretty much was a lot of loose information with no actual diagnosis, no actual. And I know mental health is tough, but again, there's nothing in animal products that are going to cure your mental health. Calories, yes. If you're under eating, if you're malnourished, yeah, you're going to be depressed, you're going to be lethargic, stuff like that. But nothing in animal products that will actually fix mental health. So that's what I meant about that. I'm saying for somebody like him, I was shocked to see that he came out with like a "I'm no longer vegan" after essentially with no information or no diagnosis or anything. So that's kind of what I was talking about. But overall, yeah, I think it's important to diagnose like, hey, I'm vegan, I'm experiencing these things. This is how I'm fixing it, or this is how I'm solving it. I think that's incredibly important.
this was a very fruitful conversation. I don't know if how you guys feel about it, but I enjoyed this.
It was so incredible.
Yeah,
Like it was very interesting and very deep and awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah,
I had a great
and I'm
time.
glad
I
that
had
you
a great
guys.
time.
Ah, that's good. And I think we can do this again maybe in the future, but otherwise for now, I think we may call it there. Anything else that you guys want to say to close off?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for being so open-minded and all and inviting me. And I had a great time. It was very interesting, I thought. So thanks so much.
Cool.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
gonna say I thank you for having us on or having me on. I appreciate it. If you want a better video or an even more interesting video next time, we'll ask you the questions on your
Yeah.
position. That'll be a fun
Yeah, for
time for you.
sure.
So
I actually am totally for that. I am 100% for that. And
cool,
even
cool.
soon, like in anytime, anytime.
I'm down. I'm down.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's been really interesting. I've had a great time talking to all of you, and I'd definitely be open to doing it again.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. I'm glad that everybody was happy and comfortable. And for the viewers, the links to everybody's channel will be in the description. And I guess we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.
Thanks so
Bye
much.
bye.
Awesome. Thank you.